Happy anniversary to Bob Chapek. 1 year ago. Yeah,
Sorry.
happy anniversary.
Sorry. No. Let's not do that.
Bob was unceremoniously let go from his job as CEO of Disney, taking with him multiple tens of millions of dollars that he got in a settlement package.
And an Elton John concert.
At an Elton John concert. So don't you worry about old Chapek. He's doing just fine. But what has been the repercussions and legacy as we look back now 1 year later? And that is the topic of today's Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. Listen, guys, if you've got a question for our show and like to hear your voice on our show, go ahead and call our Mint Mobile hotline at 951-268-4259. We like to pick out one or two and feature them here on the show. So today's is about, well, the anniversary of Bob Chapek. Check it out.
Hi, John and crew. This is Abel from Los Angeles. Today is November 20th, which is 1 year since Bob Chapek was fired, which I remember just how quickly they removed him. My question for you is, how do you reflect back on this day 1 year ago, and how do you reflect back on his job as CEO? Thank you. Have a great day and continue to bring on the filthy.
All right, Abel, thanks a lot for calling that in. And yeah, it was 1 year ago, but I'll go back even further than that. I still remember when they announced that Bob Chapek would be the ultimate successor to Bob Iger, and I, for one, liked the pick at the time. On paper, it was a good pick. It worked. It made sense. That all changed for me, though, on October 12th of 2020. On October 12th of 2020, even though Chapek had started doing some things that I thought were questionable at the time, I was still on board with it. But on October 12th, 2020, Disney put out this announcement that was basically the herald of what would ultimately lead to the downfall of Bob Chapek, as Bob Chapek decided to completely upend what the strategy had been and worked at Disney and change it all to try to make Disney Plus, something that Bob Iger created, but try to make Disney Plus the main thing of the company. This is the press release from October 12th, 2020. And I still remember the day this came out, Rob, we got on my show and I said, this is going to be a disaster. So here's what was in that Disney announcement. This is from the official Disney communique. New structure designed to accelerate the company's direct-to-consumer strategy, that's basically Disney Plus, in light of the rapid success of Disney Plus. Company's creative engines will focus on producing content for direct-to-consumer as well as legacy platforms, while newly centralized distribution group will oversee commercialization and distribution of all content globally. I'm going to translate that for you in a second. All right. It goes on down here, and this is where it really came off the rails. Kareem Daniel is named chairman of a brand new division, media and entertainment distribution, which will include the company's streaming services led by Rebecca Campbell. All right. This is what happened that day. On October 12th, 2020, Bob Chapek made the announcement that made me realize this is going to be a train wreck. First of all, he took this thing that Bob Iger had created, Disney Plus, and he said, we're going to change what Disney Plus is for. We are now going to aim everything at Disney. Now, remember, Bob Iger said, like, Disney Plus was meant to be an important piece of Disney moving forward, but it was a piece meant to complement the already insanely successful branches that they had going at the time. Bob Chapek came out, and when you read the full body of it, was like, everything's now about Disney Plus. And all of our energies now are going to be focused at funneling content to Disney Plus. That's our everything. And that was never Bob Iger's intention. Hence them putting out this press release, October 12th, 2020, announcing their change of direction. Now, it's also been noted in articles by Variety and Forbes that this is kind of where Bob Chapek and Bob Iger started to have fractures in their relationship. So there was that. But this was the big thing here again, this highlighted thing. Kareem Daniel, who has been a faithful right hand to Bob Chapek for years, has no experience in the entertainment business, is a banker. Bob Chapek created a new level of middle management in the company and gave this banker supreme authority over the creative content at all of Disney Studios. And this new division, run by this banker, who, by the way, was very successful in helping Bob Chapek for years, super smart guy. I don't want to make it sound like I'm disparaging Kareem at all. Super smart guy, had a lot of success doing things prior to this move. But all of a sudden, the final say about what got produced and where that product would go was taken away from all of the studio heads at Disney, including Kevin Feige, ripped that authority away from them and gave it to Kareem Daniels, a guy with zero entertainment experience in this brand new division whose sole purpose was about becoming a machine to just churn out product to go to Disney Plus. And at the time, we said, we're not going to feel the effects of this today. We're not going to feel the effects of this next month. But in 1, 2, and 3 years, we are going to be living in the nuclear aftermath of this horrible, horrible decision. And what have we got for the last 3 years? We got something that Bob Iger said the moment he came back. He said, we've been producing way too much, putting too much to Disney Plus. We're going to scale back. And Bob Iger is now slowly starting to return things to the way they had it before Chapek. But like we said, when Chapek took over, it's going to take a while to feel the effects. It's probably we're going to be still living under the impact of this October 12th, 2020 announcement. We are still living under the repercussions of that, and we will for at least the next year. For at least the next year, we're still going to be feeling the repercussions and the fallout from that decision. It was the thing that ultimately broke Disney and has led to a lot of the stuff. Now, there still was going to be stuff created for Disney Plus. Of course there was. There was still going to be some emphasis put on Disney Plus. Of course there was. But this press release that they put out over 3 years ago now was the day that I went, and you guys remember, because a lot of you said I was overreacting when I said, oh no, whoops, this isn't going to be good. Now, of course, there was other stuff too. Something that I don't think we talk enough about, but I think had a bigger impact than we ever realized it would have. His public war with Scarlett Johansson. Now, I thought it was a bad idea to take Black Widow and put it onto Disney Plus day and date. I thought that was a mistake, but it's not a fatal mistake. Like, it's like, okay, I don't think that's a good move. I think you're costing yourself money. I think it's a negative mood, but whatever. It's a mistake, easily to overcome, whatever. But where it became a fatal mistake was when Scarlett Johansson put up her hand, said, wait a minute, you guaranteed me this would be a theatrical release. And because you guaranteed me that, I tied a lot of my salary to the box office results. This is in our contract. So you should give me a big check to compensate me for the fact that, you know, I'm going to lose out on all this money that you contractually guaranteed me. So cut me a check. And instead of just cutting a check to keep one of their biggest stars and most beloved, who doesn't love Scarlett Johansson? Instead of cutting a check to keep in-house one of their biggest, most beloved stars, Bob Chapek decided to go to war, having his communications department issuing insulting statements. She's just being greedy. Like, you remember all that stuff that started? And we were all like, what the hell is Disney doing? And they publicly went to war thinking everybody was just going to be on their side. Newsflash, they weren't on your side. And the law wasn't on your side. You had a damn contract. You had to honor that by paying her her money. And instead of just doing that, they went to war with it. And all of a sudden, all of us started talking, and all the news outlets are like, hey, Bob Iger knew how to handle their talent. The talent loved Bob Iger. Creators and creatives loved Bob Iger. And he would have fixed this. Instead, they went to war for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And finally, what happened was what a lot of us said was going to happen. Disney had to write a big check and apologize. And that's what they just should have done from day one. And I think that fundamentally, Rob, I think that incident changed people's perception of Disney. And There were other mistakes along the way, but to me, the handling of the Scarlett Johansson situation was a big, airing out dirty laundry in public was a big black eye for the company and them. And that October 12th, 2020, I think fundamentally was the biggest problem, and unfortunately the biggest legacy. And it's unfortunate because I talk a lot of crap about Bob Chapek's running of Disney, but I always want to remind myself and everybody else that Bob Chapek had been an effective executive at Disney for a long time prior to the promotion. He took over Disney under the worst possible circumstances with, hey, you're the new CEO. Oh, by the way, if you heard this thing, there's some kind of flu going around. With the pandemic shutting everything down, he took it over under unimaginable circumstances, and I never want to take that away from him. And he certainly did a better job running that company than I would have. But I think these fatal mistakes are ultimately going to be the legacy of the Bob Iger or the Bob Chapek era that we are still living with the consequences of. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Fume. Quitting cold turkey is great in theory, but you and I both know it's way more difficult than that. And that's why there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some fake online promises. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume. And they look at the problem in a different way. Instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavor-air device that does just that. See, instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. I personally didn't know what to expect when I first got my Fume. I mean, I've never liked vapes, but my goodness, the taste. The first time I tried it, I was completely sold on it. It was incredible. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com and use the code CAMPEA to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com and use the code CAMPEA to save an additional 10% off your order today. Anyway, Rob, we're sitting here now 1 year later. I remember you and I talking about that press release when it first came out. What do you think about now as we have 1 year between that and now?
Well, I think you pretty much summed it up. And, I can't help but look at where the Marvel Cinematic Universe is as a whole, what we've seen on both Disney Plus and what we're going to talk about in terms of the Marvels and the performance. And, the idea of moving in a banker that admittedly was very successful, obviously you pointed that out. But this thought process that entertainment product, movies, television, can somehow be controlled and decided upon by bankers, by people that are looking only at numbers. And I've been saying this, on my own YouTube show, and I've been talking to people about it in the industry. We've seen these strikes happen. Everybody wants to use now these analytics. And at the end of the day, there's an element of making entertainment that has to come from gut instinct. The great studio moguls of yore used to decide what they want. It was like one guy who said, I want to make this, and would make sure these things, put the talent together. You don't have an analytic sheet that tells you what's going to work and what's not. It's a gut feeling. And I think that Bob Iger had a little bit of that because he grew up. I mean, you listen to his story about meeting Frank Sinatra from a young age, and he understood how talent relationships work. And in this business, half of this business is the relationships you have with talent, because talent, these are the people that have to create this stuff. And if suddenly you're allowing, that's what happened to Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
And no one sat in there, and like you pointed out, she had a contract. You can't just decide. And Warner Brothers did the same thing when they decided to go day and date with all their movies. We're going to put our movies on HBO Max and in the theater. It's like, bruh, you guys don't, there's contracts here. Legendary Pictures, your financier. You can't do that. And they just went and did it. And I think that more than anything is the problem. And I think that Chapek, look, Chapek's been a company man. When I worked in home video there, worked creating special features, he was very well liked. He was a big proponent of home video back in the aughts. And I think that he was a company guy, but he didn't have the kind of people skills that somebody like Bob Iger learned from a very young age. And you can't just throw people into positions, and just because on paper they might have the right credentials, Are they the right person for the job? Because sometimes it's the things that aren't on paper that are what's most important. And I think we saw a guy. I mean, Bob Chapek is not a dumb man by any stretch of the imagination.
Not at all. Not in the least.
He's a very smart guy, and he worked at Disney for a very long time, and he understood the company, but I don't think he understood the people aspects of what he was required to do. And when they bring everybody in, they try and control it all. You know, there is that it factor. There is that factor where somebody's going to create. You know, you never get you're never a success in Hollywood by following trends or analytics. At some point, you have to use your gut, and you have to make something that no one else is making, like Alan Ladd Jr. When Universal, after American Graffiti was made and became a big hit, when Universal said to George Lucas, yeah, we don't want to do your weird space adventure. It was Alan Ladd Jr. who said over at Fox, I don't know about this Lucas kid. I don't know about this space adventure, but maybe he can do it. And he had the gut instinct to say, let's make Star Wars.
You know, to your point about Iger too, I think fundamentally talking about his ability to relate with people, which was not one of Chapek's stronger points. But he also had one overriding philosophy. He believed Disney needed to be guided by creators, right? So when you look at the movie system, the studio system, he took the greatest movie executive of all time, Alan Horn, got him to come over, got him out of retirement. And then they empowered Alan Horn and the individual studio heads, whether it's John Lasseter, Kevin Feige, and the others who represent the different divisions, and said, you guys are going to decide what you make, and you guys are going to decide where it goes. Answer to Alan, who is a creator himself. We'll tell you how much you can spend and how much you can't spend and all that kind of stuff. But Iger had this overriding philosophy that creators needed to be the ones pushing the company forward. And that October 12th, 2020 memorandum set off a flare in the sky that said, creators no longer run Disney. Now, bankers run Disney. The data sheets will run Disney now. And I don't like, maybe there's a happy medium between the Iger philosophy and the Chapek philosophy, but I mean, I love this idea of getting back to creators are going to push us forward. It's just, we're still going to be a couple of years away from seeing the results of trying to get back to that. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.